Planning Development and Zoning Commission meeting for October 15th. We'll start with roll call. See, Ryan Miller, that's me, I'm here. Kyle Maraskin.
Here.
Marianne Atkinson.
Here.
Kenneth Haynes.
Here.
Christy is still sick this evening. Dolores Martin.
Here.
And William Richardson.
Here.
And if I can have everybody stand for the pledge, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag.
Texas flag.
I pledge to thee, Texas, one state, under God, indivisible.
Okay, thank you. One public comment regarding one of our agenda items, so I'll read that when we get to that agenda item. Yeah, there were no other comment cards, so correct? John. That was the only one she gave me, so. Okay, so we'll start this evening with a workshop or presentation from one of our applicants. This is discussion update on ordinance 2024-0-35, which is the amending the ordinance for the PUD for Dobella Lakes. Okay, would y'all like to start with your presentation? Okay.
Evening, everybody. I'm David Mintzberg, and I represent the partnership that owns this property. And I appreciate y'all accommodating me. This was actually scheduled 3 weeks ago for me to be here, and it must be something about coming out to Manvel, because 3 weeks ago and a day, one daughter had a baby, and yesterday another daughter had a baby. So it must be something about coming out here that gets my daughters to go into labor. But the first time I wanted to go and went to San Diego. This time she's a little closer to home, so I'm able to be here. So thank you for accommodating my schedule. You may recall last time I was here, Chris Wall was here from Keating Toyota. Mr. Wall is still our prospective purchaser, or Keating Toyota is still our prospective purchaser. Mr. Wall asked me to apologize. He's in Nashville and was unable to arrange his schedule to be here, but he did want you to know that he is still highly interested in, and wants to work with Manvel on getting this accomplished. So since I was last here, we tried to take into account all the comments that we heard, not only from the citizens that spoke, but from the members of this commission, and incorporate them. And so we have come back and made a number of modifications to the plan. So I don't know if that's loaded here or up. Dan, do you know?
Are we able to move it ourselves on this? Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay. So the first thing, and I think perhaps the most critical thing, is there was discussion that our plan came forward and we were proposing to use the entire site for dealerships. So we have now reconfigured the site that it's approximately 16 acres for a single dealership. A second item was, and I believe several of y'all spoke to this, of wanting to be sure that there was retail. And so you'll see that we have retail called out along the frontage of Del Bello Boulevard. So those were the two principal things that got raised in terms of the site configuration. High technology is not my strong suit.
So it's the one that is, whoever is controlling this, it's the PD&Z. Yeah. Hey, Ellie.
Presentation. Yes, sorry.
No, please.
Yeah. She's going. This is your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay,
And then just, yeah.
great. So that's what's represented on this slide. We then came back and we heard the comments about noise concerns And so we've agreed to construct a wall. Again, my screen's doing funny things, but I think I see it there. A boundary wall to reduce the noise. And then as part of that, we provided for a 25-foot setback from the boundary line to where anything would be built. And then Keating Toyota has agreed to follow all the guidelines for the city of Manvel on lighting, as well as provide everything and build it to standards. I'm not as well equipped to talk about that other than to say they understand that, lighting's a concern, and city of Manvel has standards and they'll be in full compliance, or understand that that's be part of the permitting process. So with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions, but we have attempted to comply with everything that we heard from y'all and from the citizens.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Okay, we'll start just down the row here. Anybody have any direct questions for our
Well, the fence, that's an automatic when he does this. It's got to be an engineered fence because that's city guidelines. My biggest question is back to drainage.
Yes, sir.
Because I know the original drainage currently from Keaton comes across the street and would now have to be rediverted underneath this property or around somehow. Because from what I saw, Dan, doesn't it go back into the new, or back into the existing drainage ponds?
I believe
Isn't
that's
that
correct.
how it is?
Is your engineer here tonight?
The engineer's not here, but I can read his statement, and I didn't know, this was so long ago that I didn't know this, but, and this may be on what we submitted, but the residential and commercial property owners had an agreement where the residential developers would construct the necessary detention for all the land within this MUD, including the commercial site. That outfall drainage and detention is already in place, so that there is no additional detention needed to develop the commercial sites. In addition, the trunk water and sewer are also in place to the boundary of the commercial site, ready for connection. The connection points are along Del Bella Boulevard. And this was all, Dan, I don't believe you were the city manager at the time when this was all put in place.
Well, I agree with that, Dan, but back, if I remember right, on the original agreement on this, there was a lot more green space. I'd have to figure out where those files are to make sure that's correct. And if that's the case, it does change the drainage.
When they get to the next step to actually submit drainage plans, they'll have to go through us and BDD4
Right.
for site-specific drainage, for sure, yeah. So if there's not enough detention there, or if it's a different coefficient, then we would have to adjust accordingly. But, it's always been intended to be some sort of commercial zone, so that would have been the coefficient they used. If they end up using more than they thought, then they'll have to, perhaps over-detain, or maybe they have some on-site detention, but and that's from LJA?
LJA,
From
Michael Russ.
Michael Rusk, yeah. So
He's,
they designed it all
right, it was,
with this in mind.
again, I'm not an engineer, but you had asked me
Not either,
about this
but-
last time, and so we went back, and he said, David, it's all there. So-
What's not there yet, of course, is the conveyance to the pond, and that's what they'll have to do as part of it.
And to the extent, we're not here presenting a final engineering plan.
Correct.
Dan
But still,
and
it's-
But
City
there's-
Hall will have to sign off on.
There'll be another step that will review and ensure all that's correct then, so.
But your point's well made, and we understand that. But again,
Well, that's why I said, even the drainage coming across from Keaton would have to be rerouted somehow.
yes, sir.
Because I know it, in the original plan, it comes dead through the middle of the property.
And
And I don't know if that ditch is already there, but.
again, we'll,
Yeah, you-
engineers will
yeah,
will prepare that and submit it.
In the
And
plans.
and Mr. Rusk has been out here, I think, more than once.
Yes.
And is very familiar with Manvel and working with you on drainage and utilities and connections.
Yeah, so that'll all be reviewed. Ms. Martin, you have a question?
Yes, the one thing I was concerned about, the residents that were here were complaining about the I guess the testing of cars up and down, what have you done about that? Because that would be an issue if you had small children or animals that have a tendency to find the street.
Again, I'm not the exact right person to speak to that, but, I did talk to Chris about that, and he says that the salespeople have been instructed that they're not to drive through the neighborhood.
The trouble is, talk's cheap. It doesn't cost anything, and you can talk. Unless you have a plan to implement it, it's not going to work.
Well, I
Yeah,
believe they have such a plan from what he's shared with me, but I can't say anything more than that. Don't know how that would be totally different, though, if you had some other user there whose people would be driving through and around.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with you on the concern of that, but on the other end of that, as a ex-technician, you still got to drive the vehicle. However, speed, that turns into a law enforcement issue. So I don't really know how to gauge that as well for the citizens, and, let's.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess my question goes back to, I see the boundary wall that you're proposing here, and I see the trees over here, but the areas that I guess that you're not proposing to develop right now, I lost my screen there. Is that area when they get ready to develop that, and you may not know the answer to that, but I think those residential houses that are along that back border that does not have anything, no trees and no boundary wall, I think we owe them to make sure that we do them right as well when that property is developed.
I don't, sir, I don't disagree. When we come back with a plan for that, I think we'd have to make arrangements.
And you're talking about on the map up here, the dealership's outlined in yellow, am I right?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
everything is outlined
Yeah.
in red. Yeah.
Yeah, so the other portion of it, then the retail area is what
That's
you're talking
correct.
about. Okay. Okay, just to be clear.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Richardson or Ms. Atkinson, any questions?
Well, how many homes are going to be adjacent to this car lot and the lights? Because it seems like there's, I tried to count them, and I think there was like 40 or some.
Yeah. It looks like somewhere in that range, 20 to 40.
And I guess what goes in my head is, number one, their consent of having that, and also what they were sold when they bought it, as far as, was that kind of presented as this could be a parking lot, or this was going to be a little parkade where we had different stores? And that's,
Well, I can answer that one for you, 'cause based on what our salesman told us when we bought our house. It was going to be a lot full of trees growing money, so it could be anything. They told us whatever they had to tell us. But it is commercial property, so,
it could always.
it could always be anything, so you just have to keep that in mind.
I don't know that I counted it right, but I believe I've got 18 homes that are up against it.
Kind of directly against the yellow outlined area.
Yes, sir. And that includes, as the 18th, because I started at the apex in the middle, that includes the 18th is the one that's sort of angled away. So it's,
Okay.
and I may have missed one or two, but I think I was close at 18. It may be 20. I was just trying to quick count.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah. Okay. What other?
About a lighting plan, because I know that was a concern with a lot of citizens. I know they make downlights, which are directional, and
Yeah, I know here they've got on the
I think they done miss.
they've got some new text in here for us that's I can read for you. So it says
We'll meet every requirement of Manvel's newly released light standards. I mean, there's, again, they're y'all's standards, and we'll meet them.
So let's see, that says it will comply with the requirements of the PUD agreement. There's 2 in here, so let me get back to the other one here so I can read that.
Dan, do we have a restriction on type of lights?
Might be a better question for Ellie.
Your question about type of lots?
Yeah, like type of lights, how many lumens? I know the light can't leave their property technically, but that's really, how do you control that?
So the recommendation that staff will have, we have this as an action item in regular agenda item number C. So we're going to talk about that and discuss it. But to answer to your question, it has to be based on Illuminating Engineering Society of North America criteria for full cut fixture, which is 100% for light output below 90 degrees and 90% for light output below 80 degrees from vertical line through the fixture. Also, outdoor lighting shall not exceed 3/10 foot angle measured vertically and horizontally.
And it also has in here that outdoor lighting shall be deflected, shaded, and focused away from abutting properties, and shall not be a nuisance to abutting properties, and shall be designed so that any overspill of lighting onto abutting property shall not exceed 3/10 of a candle foot, like you just said.
So, yeah.
So that's text. It's already in there. Okay. Any other direct questions before we move on to the agenda item here in a minute?
Just one thing. I mean, the city standard is the city standard, but in this type of, I want to say not quite a quote-unquote negotiation, but if there are other standards that would use to impose that would enable this to happen, you can discuss that. You know, for instance, like in the SUP process, we would require a church to maybe have a traffic plan to make sure everybody getting out at once doesn't tie up Highway 6. You know, that might be something over and above what the city does, but it would allow the church to be there with that simple requirement. So if you do want to discuss things to ameliorate certain specific concerns to help get this through, you can do that and make that part of the deal. Is this is kind of like a negotiated zoning district in this PUD, but just wanted to point that out, that you can address specific concerns if you wanted to, like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so no other direct questions for our guest right now?
We can, no, I'm sorry, not for
Okay.
you.
Thank you, sir. Then we may come up with something else, but thank you for answering our questions so far.
Can you help me with, so what's the process from here? Is this?
We have an agenda item.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then we're going to have, I think before we close the workshop, we'll have some additional discussion here. And then during the agenda item, we might have some more questions for you.
Okay.
And then
Great.
I know I'm going to have some questions for
I'll be
some of
here.
our other guests too. So
I'll be here. Thank you.
thank you, sir. Okay, so just to be clear, as of right now, staff does not recommend approval of the ordinance as it is, but their recommendations, if we wanted to approve it, would be to limit the motor vehicle portion to the 16 acres as they just showed us up there. Adding a limit of 2 different dealerships, essentially, so the existing 1 + 1 new one. The 25-foot landscaping buffer between the car dealership and the residential lots, the 6-foot masonry wall, the outdoor lighting requirements. So those are the current suggestions that they have.
Right, did you say 6 foot, 8 foot?
The masonry wall right now is written as 6 foot.
Okay, I thought it was 8. Okay.
I would recommend increasing that to 8. And then I think to address a couple of the other things that I'd heard that I think are simple to address, but like the car carriers and so forth, that they need to make an allowance in their layout for those car carriers to unload on their property. So they need to have enough room in there for them to turn around or whatever they have to do, but they need to absorb that. It shouldn't be on the, public roadway. It's dangerous to everybody and a nuisance to the residents. The, yes, ma'am.
What about the weight that's going to tear up the roads?
Well, the road, I mean, they're certified to, they can't legally exceed the maximum allowable weight, and the roads should be designed to carry that weight if they're, commercial roads.
That's not overweight.
Yeah.
On the lighting, can we put something in there to make sure that it only shines down and maybe some kind of back deal where it doesn't shine back?
Yeah. Is there?
My problem with the lights is right now, I can't even see this way because of the lights from the school, all of that stuff. I wish I was really more into doing this when they did that, but it used to be dark where I live. Now it's like a glowing backdrop. I can't even see the comet, It's so much light. Is there something, like you said, can we put something in there to make sure the light does not go up and over?
Dan, is there a requirement that you know of that's
That's the difficulty, is how do you word it? Where do you get from? How do you measure it? Ellie might be a better resource on that. She worked on the lighting ordinance, so
Yeah, right.
I don't know
exactly.
what that would be,
Yeah,
but that is
it's,
something along the lines you can discuss, yeah.
You can do a traffic study on that. Obviously you can come up with a lighting plan, but I guess the question is there a way to review it after it's installed to make sure it complies with what?
Yeah, well, so there's two
Done,
things.
or-
One, on the front end, there's a photometric plan. So this is what, from a lighting perspective, this is what it's going to be at the perimeter. And some cities literally have 0 foot candles, 0 spillage, I guess. You're not going to have 0 foot candles. I mean, on a full moon night, of course, there's still going to be some light, ambient light. But anyway, you can specify what it is at the perimeter. And then on the back end, we send code enforcement out there with actual light detectors, so to speak, and they can measure it. And so they can measure it versus ambient. Just like the noise ordinance, it gets a little tricky because there could be a hot spot here or, hot spot there. But the different, I guess the nuance about our new light, it's called the light trespass ordinance. So it talks more about, I think it actually talks more about intent more than anything. Like, are you trying to drown your neighbors out with light? That's kind of where it came from. So we've got a couple of different avenues there. The best way to catch it is what we learned with Keating is on the design end, though, because they had to go back and spend a lot of money to retrofit things and shield them and all this other kind of good stuff. So if you make that, as to Bobby's point, you make that up front.
I also think there was one thing, I think that it was discussed with Keating originally, was a way to turn it down, but I guess the ones that they had gotten were not able to be dimmable. Thank you, that's the word I was looking for. Maybe there's a way to demo, so after a certain amount of time, it goes down, but like I said, I'm talking out of my expertise here. There might be input from somebody on the other side.
Yeah, and so, Ellie, it sounds like you've already put a lot of work into this area. What, I think we know what our intent is just to, protect the neighbors from a lot of light spillage. What would your recommendation be?
So the recommendation was the one that I read for you. It came based on the ordinance that recently approved.
So if we had to be a
Yeah.
little bit stricter than that, what would that look like?
I'm not expert of that, so I think that ordinance came based on some studies and reviews, and whatever it's in the ordinance, it's the minimum standards. So we use that.
Okay.
If you think that you need to add more, we can add to it.
Okay.
I think the key word in the recommendation on number 5 is that it would be shielded. I think that's the key word. And so maybe you add dimmable, to Bobby's point.
If that's something we need more time to research and just need to be tabled, maybe we don't have to rush into it. We can explore that if that's something that's.
I mean, so this is a recommendation to city council, so if we give you our recommendation, can, between now and then, y'all have time to fill in some of these very specific things. Or is our intent good enough to pass the council and you can give them some better numbers to?
Sure, and I guess the moral to the story is, so staff's recommendation was, not a positive one. So if PD&Z's recommendation is not a positive one either, then this is all a moot point. So I guess.
Right. So-
at some point, we got
So
to get to that.
yeah, exactly. So if we give you our, we have to have something to make the motion with at the very minimum. And then if it's approved, then you have, all the conditions, and then you can put a fine point on those conditions before presenting it to city council. But if it's denied, then you don't have to worry about it. Our
Does it
recommendation is
come,
denial.
can it come back if it's denied? In any other form? I mean,
Back to PD&Z, you mean, well, of course, it depends on what council does with it. Council could, as any thing, so you're a recommendation board to council, just in a way, kind of like staff is. And so council can say, thank you for all your hard work, this is good stuff, we want it anyway. Or thank you for all your hard work, this is good stuff, but we don't want it, So, I mean, it could, this is really just more eyes on it. And, what is the best, in a way, y'all kind of represent the public as well.
Well, if council does change something, or if, it's proposed ordinance and it does have what I would consider a major change, we always tell council, send it back to PD&Z. Especially if it expands something and goes into an area that wasn't originally even covered by the original ordinance, we always send that back to PD&Z. If there's a little, some chiseling and some changing of terms and what have you like that, we pretty much go with that, and they've got your recommendation. But there is a major change, it would come back to you. So what is a major change is a little bit of a gray area. But
Yeah.
we usually err on the side of sending it back to you guys.
So
Dan.
unless we have something specific, I would be comfortable with sending it with, something that conveys our intent, and then allow staff to put a
it's-
fine point on it.
Well, I'm still concerned about, the lighting is minimum, what we've been told. So we really don't know that much about it, plus the residents' concerns about it.
you had a
I
lot of
don't feel
complaints.
positive about it at this time until more things are addressed.
I think we're playing with the tinderbox.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
so there's two things here. One, like I said, we always have a positive, motion. But whatever that motion is, we need to make sure all of the conditions are there, because it can be, a positive outcome or a negative outcome.
Well,
If it's a
suppose,
negative outcome, then it's moot, right? Doesn't really matter.
let's suppose that motion is shut down. We send it up to city council with a recommendation from PDZ not to approve.
Yep, it's
Okay.
just a recommendation.
Okay.
And Ryan, this might be part of your discussion when you get to the item. Technically, we're still on, I guess, the workshop presentation and staff presentation, and then we have a public hearing still to hear from people on the subject. So the motion and how you might want to frame that additional discussion, you might want to hold off till you get to that item on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's really, I just wanted to focus on coming up with any additional.
You were looking for a consensus.
Yeah.
Well, any additional wording for any of the conditions, for any additional conditions or any changes to these conditions, just to work out those bits. If we need to do it under the agenda item, then that's fine. Thought I had it on. If we need to do that on the agenda item, we can. Either way, whatever your recommendation is.
Maybe I misunderstood. It looked like you were trying to get to a motion that
Oh,
you could.
no.
The conditions, that would be something you could get to, so.
No, I just wanted to shape any additional conditions that we wanted to have in there, just to try to cover as much ground as possible while we're just discussing, essentially, before we get to the formal stuff. So are there anything additional that we think we need to discuss when we get to the agenda item that's not already outlined here? So we have, those 6 items. We discussed changing the wall to 8 feet instead of 6 feet. Car carriers need to be accommodated on property. possibility of lighting measurements at the perimeter, and possibility of dimmable lighting.
And to double check the drainage.
Drainage will,
Yeah.
okay. Does staff have anything else they would like to add?
So I have a presentation for you.
Okay.
I'm going to present it, and after that, maybe you can make decision better.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
She doesn't let me to do. I don't want this. Brooke, what are you doing? It's not you. Sorry, I'm trying to share the screen.
No worries. Technical difficulties is the theme of the day.
It has been.
Okay. So you all almost know about everything about regarding this requested amendment. So I'm going to talk about it more, so it may help you to make decision better. So this amendment has been requested by Garrett Nunder for ordinance number 2020-0-14, considering zoning and development requirements for the Del Valle Lakes Planned Unit Development. This amendment would allow a motor vehicle dealer, NICS code 4411, on a commercial property at the southeast corner of Highway 288 and Del Valle Boulevard. The Del Valle Lakes PUD, originally established by Ordinance Number 2017-045, was previously amended twice for signage allowance. The applicant now requests a PUD amendment to allow a second motor vehicle dealership on a 30-acre commercial tract on the south side of Del Valle Road. The current PUD only permits one dealership on the north side, which is Toyota dealership. The applicant argues that the site is better suited for the car dealership, having received minimal interest from other commercial businesses. They also highlight two potential buyers interested in developing a dealership on this location. The request focuses on a 16-acre section for a car dealership, and the site plan includes two 30,000 square foot dealership buildings, a car wash, and retail pad sites for restaurants and other commercial uses. Public hearing was held by PD&Z on August 26 and by City Council on September 3, 2024. Common public concerns include lighting, traffic, noise, and drainage. The applicant revised their request, limiting it to 16 acres for dealership. They have proposed additional design features like landscaping, sound walls, and lighting measures. Please consider these points. About 19% of total acreage of Del Bello Lakes development, which is about 50 acres, allocated for commercial. 18 acres of that 50 acres used by the existing car dealership, which is about 36% of total commercial allowance. Approval of this proposed amendment to allow a car dealership in 16 acres will increase it to 68% of 50 acre for motor vehicle sales use, and will result in reduced variety of other retail uses. Also, please consider that due to the location of the subject site along a major thoroughfare, the proposed amendment is not anticipated to create any traffic-related concerns. The detention capacity for the subject site was considered in the overall drainage plan and calculation for Del Bello Lakes development, so an on-site development will not be required. Staff does not recommend approval of the amendment, citing concerns over the limited variety of commercial uses within the PUD. The addition of another dealership reduces the potential of other retail and service businesses, which were originally intended for this area. Conditions for approval, if considered. Limit the dealership to 16 acres as shown in the proposed site plan. Only allow dealership that primarily sell new vehicles. Provide a 25-foot landscaping buffer with trees every 20 feet between the dealership and residential areas. Install a 6-foot masonry fence within the buffer zone. Ensure outdoor lighting is fully shielded and focused away from neighboring properties, following strict standards to minimize overspill. And here I'm going to read the minimum requirements for lighting again, which is 100% of light output below 90 degrees and 90% of light output below 80 degrees from a vertical line through the fixture. And outdoor lighting shall not exceed 3/10 foot candle measured vertically and horizontally. So this is my presentation. You had the applicant and he answered your question. Now you can decide.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure I understand. You have a 25-foot landscaping buffer with trees every 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
On here, it says 25-foot intervals with a 45-foot setback.
Yes.
So this one's better than that one, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if they do what you have written here, it'd be way better than what you got written up there. 45 feet with, well, I like the 20-foot between the trees, but this is what you have on here with the 25-foot intervals and 45 feet setback. Okay,
Yes.
so this is what would be correct.
This is the recommendation by staff. This is the minimum. If they provide more, better.
Okay, because the 45 feet is a lot better. That's more space. Okay.
Okay, what other questions before we move on? We have the agenda item later, so this will just be the workshop portion. Any other questions or discussion before we
Not at the
move on?
present time.
Okay. So that will conclude our workshop presentation then on that agenda item. Just looking at the agenda here, do y'all have a different presentation for the public hearing? Okay, you want to go and do that now then?
This is the specific use permit request to allow a religious use on 6.91 acre undeveloped tract located on Old Massey Ranch Road in the Hot Coat Manufactured Home District. The subject property is currently undeveloped and bordered by the Briscoe Canal to the east, Old Massey Ranch Road to the north, and utility and residential properties to the west and south. The land was rezoned with a specific use permit for religious organizations in 2020, but the permit expired in 2021 due to the lack of substantial development within the required period. The applicant indicated that the owner experienced financial difficulties during that time, leading to abandonment of the development process and allowing the specific use permit and associated variance to lapse. The owner was indicated that they are now in a better financial position. Therefore, the applicant, on behalf of International Victory Christian Church, is seeking reapproval of the same specific use permit to establish a religious use in the property. A conceptual site plan has been submitted, including a 6,336 square foot church building, parking lot, and drainage pond. The site plan also outlines future phases of development, which include additional driveway, parking spaces, and building, contingent on securing further financing. The subject property is located on Old Massey Ranch Road, which is classified as a proposed major thoroughfare with minimum right-of-way width of 100 feet. Please note that the detailed review of site and building construction plans will occur during the platting and permitting process. Also, please note that surrounding land uses remain largely unchanged since the previous SUP approval, except for the development of the Massey Oaks subdivision to the east, located in the city of Pearland. Since Old Massey Ranch Road is a county road, the requirements for sidewalks and road improvement will align with the Brazoria County minimum standards.
Okay.
The staff has reviewed the proposal and found the proposed use is not expected to have any negative impact on nearby properties due to the proximity to nearby residential lots is mitigated by the larger lot sizes on the west and south and the Briscoe Canal on the east side, added distance from the Massey Oaks subdivision. The proposed use may slightly change traffic pattern on Old Massey Ranch Road, but given its status as a major thoroughfare, these changes are not expected to be significant. Surrounding properties are zoned hot coat manufactured home or are outside of city of Manvel or are not restricted to residential use, allowing for potential commercial development. The proposed use meets all approval criteria provided in sections 77-50E of the Code of Ordinance, ensuring the requested use is in harmony with adjacent properties and will not negatively impact the general area. The 2015 Comprehensive Plan encourages well-planned development, aligning with the vision of balanced rural character with growth. The proposed use is consistent with the plan's goals for major thoroughfare and is not expected to negatively impact adjacent properties. Staff recommends approval of the specific use permit with these conditions. The site must be platted in compliance with Chapter 62. Development shall generally conform to the submitted site plan with modification as needed for compliance with city code. Outdoor lighting shall be shielded and shall conform with the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America criteria for full cutoff fixtures. Outdoor lighting shall not be a nuisance to abutting properties. Buildings shall be designed in conformance with all adopted technical codes, including building and fire codes. If you have any question, I don't know if applicant is here. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions about her presentation before we have the public hearing? No? Okay.
Good job.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we will move on to the public hearing then, I guess. Okay, so it is 6:45, 6:46. We'll open the public hearing to hear input from the public regarding ordinance of the City of Manvel, Texas, amending the zoning ordinance of the city by amending the zoning classification approximately 6.910 acres bounded by Old Massey Ranch Road to the north, the Briscoe Canal to the east, and a residentially developed property south and east from HUD Code Manufactured Home District to HUD Code Manufactured Home District with specific use permit, providing for the granting of a specific use permit with conditions to authorize the use of the property for NAICS use 813110 religious organizations, providing for the amendment to the city's official zoning map, providing for severability, and providing a penalty in an amount not to exceed $2,000 for each day of violation of any provision hereof. So we'll call for any public comments. Okay. Second call for any public comments. And final call for any public comments. Okay, we'll close this public hearing at 6:47. Okay, so first up is our consent agenda, which consists of approving the final plat for Valencia Lake H and approving the meeting minutes to date. Anybody have any objections, anything in there? No, any motions then?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? And the motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Okay. And then we have agenda item A, which is consideration of possible action to approve the final plat for Valencia Section 10. Who would like to tell us about this?
Good evening. So this is the Valencia Section 10 final plat. The proposed plat is a residential section within the Valencia Master Plan Development Establishment, BUD. The amendment to the Valencia Plan Unit Development, including Valencian Master Plan, was approved in April of 2024. The City of Brazoria County Municipal Utility District Number 83 entered to an interlocal and development agreement on October 15 for reservations of 410 equivalent single-family connections. And the first amendment to the interlocal and development agreement became effective on March 18th. Upon payment of the second deposit, the city reserves an additional 840 ESFCs to the district. The proposed site is located along northeast boundary of the Valencia development. The proposed subdivides 10.427 acre tract into 51 residential lots, two blocks, and 5 reserves for landscaping, open space, and drainage. This section includes single-family specialty product residential lots, typically 45-foot wide lots, and the proposed plat generally conforms with the preliminary plat that was approved earlier in February this year. The staff recommends approval for the Valencia Section 10 with 2 conditions, which is to revise and remove the 10-foot sanitary sewer easement along Reserve A, B, and D for accuracy, and also to, in accordance with the approval of the First Amendment to the interlocal development agreement between the City of Manvel and Brazoria County Number 83 regarding public improvement, the second deposit for the reservation of an additional 840 ESFCs is required to be paid. Please make payment to satisfy this requirement.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any questions? No, any motions then?
Move to,
Motion to approve
With conditions?
with conditions.
Yeah.
second.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Okay, agenda item B, consideration and possible action to approve of the final plat of Valencia, section 11. Again, who would like to tell us?
Yes, this is the Valencia Section 11 final plat. This proposes a residential section in the same Valencia PUD. The amendment of Valencia PUD was approved in April 2024. The city of Brazoria, the city and the Brazoria County Municipal Utilities District 83 entered into that interlocal and development agreement October 15, and then the first amendment was on the March 18th, reserving additional 840 ESFs to the district. This proposed site is located on the north side of the proposed detention lakes E and F of the proposed Valencia PUD. And the proposed plat subdivides a 9.618 acre tract into 53 residential lots, 2 blocks, and 2 reserves for landscaping, open space, and drainage. The proposed section includes the single-family specialty product, typically 45-foot wide lots, and it generally confirms the preliminary plat that was approved back in February. The city staff recommends approval for this final plat under one condition, and condition is to, in accordance with the approved First Amendment to the interlocal and development agreement between the city of Manvel and Brazoria County MUD number 83 regarding public improvement, the second deposit for the reservations of an additional 840 ESFSCs is required to be paid. Please make payment to satisfy this requirement.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions about this item? No? Motions then?
Motion to approve with conditions.
With conditions, okay, second?
Second.
Okay, and all in favor? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Okay. Consideration and possible action to approve and forward a recommendation to City Council Ordinance 2024-0-35, which is our favorite one.
Yes.
The motor vehicle dealership. We get to talk about it all the time. It's so much fun. So this was tabled previously at the August meeting and then postponed until today. Okay. So this is what our workshop was on. So what other questions, anything to start with from anybody up here?
I think they did a remarkable job of researching and sharing their opinion with us.
Okay. Okay, so I know I had a question. Can I pick on you in the back? I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Yes, ma'am. You showed up more than once that you've elected yourself the representative for this cause. So you've heard some of the discussion that we've had with some of the requirements that we can impose with the vegetation buffer and the lighting requirements and things like that. So we have that which is known and controllable versus, as it stands right now, if it's retail and just, food establishments and things like that, then, it is what it is. We don't have any additional control over that. So there's a little bit of an unknown, smells, dumpsters, things like that are always possible. Given the choice between what we know and these other options, you stand where you stood previously, that you still prefer not to have the dealership? Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Do we have any other questions for applicants or
No.
Other members?
He can't answer my drainage questions until it's all
Okay.
done, so.
So no other discussion needed at this
No.
time. So are we at a place where we want to make a motion and have a vote, or do we want to table it, or where are we at?
Do we need to specify about the 6 to 8 foot fence and stuff like that?
Those would be the conditions, yeah, if we want to make any
any
modifications,
motion
then,
you'd like
yeah.
Right.
And then the vote would reflect that.
Correct.
Because, I mean, staff's already made their recommendation. So,
So we want to make a motion with conditions,
No.
or do we want further discussion?
How do you vote that you don't want it?
We had to make a motion with conditions, and then you're welcome to vote against it if you'd like.
I'll make a motion with the conditions that we've talked about. I guess we need to
So-
put them in writing with,
So just to be clear, sorry. it's
That's
gonna
an
take-
8-foot wall instead of 6 foot.
Yeah, it's going to take me a second just to find the full list. Okay, so the recommendations that we've discussed so far are motor vehicle sales use on the south side of Del Bella Road shall be limited to 16 acres. Only motor vehicle sales use which primarily sells new cars. Now this is one of those points here, so the recommendation is written is a minimum 25-foot landscaping buffer. The applicant has
8-foot wall instead of 6 foot.
correct. So the applicant has proposed 45-foot landscaping buffer in their plan. So do we want to?
that's what,
I'm looking at your plan right now. It says 45-foot.
Sorry, that's an outdated presentation from a few months ago.
Okay.
Shows an
if that's outdated, I can't base that then.
No,
So that puts me back to square one of going fully with staff.
that is correct.
So we still,
I may
yes, sir.
go forward on 45. I'm just saying, yeah, I was only correcting our request is 25. But
Okay.
we understand, you may do 45. Just correcting what we were requesting.
Okay, so the third condition as written right now is minimum 25-foot landscaping buffer between the residential lots and the car dealership. Is that where we want to keep it at, 25 feet?
I want to keep it the 45 feet buffer with 20-foot increments of trees.
Okay, everybody's fine with changing that in
Sure.
our recommendation? Okay, so 45-foot with trees every 20 feet. Currently, as written, it's a minimum 6-foot wall. Change that to 8-foot wall, masonry wall, behind the landscaping buffer. And then the outdoor lighting shall be shielded and shall conform with the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America criteria for full cutoff fixtures, which is 100% light put below 90 degrees. And then outdoor lighting shall be deflected, shaded, and focused away from the abutting properties.
And dimmable.
Okay. We would like to add dimmable to item number 6 there.
Yeah, they do.
The dealership must accommodate any vehicle transport deliveries on property. I'd like to add that as a 7th item.
Yes.
Okay. So those are our conditions. Any additional conditions?
Well, and the masonry fence, does that have to say engineered even though the ordinance says? Or should it say it in this?
If you don't mind, add that on there, just to make sure we're all clear.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's in the ordinance as well, but
So an engineered 8-foot
Yeah.
masonry fence for item number 4 then?
Yeah, not just thrown up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
so that would be in.
Anything else? Speak now or forever hold your pieces. Okay. And do I have a second on that motion then? Second. All those in favor? And all those opposed? So that's 5-1.
So,
Motion fails 5-1, or 1-5, sorry.
thank you.
Okay. So agenda item D, consideration and possible action to approve and forward with recommendation of City Council Ordinance 2024-0-41. This is going to be the SUP for the religious organizations. Okay.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
I was trying to look on the map where it actually was. Is there an address for this?
Should be.
37.
Yeah.
Everything
Street of
has
the
an
left.
address as long as it's, platted and all that. So, I mean, I get the boundaries, but the actual address.
There is no actual address, but there is a PID number.
How can we have something that's there with no address? I thought you had to have an address before you could even plat anything.
They can reach out to Centerpoint to get address.
Okay, so they haven't even done that yet?
Seems to.
Because I know in the construction world, you have to have an address when you start construction.
A lot of times Centerpoint won't give you an address until you've got a plat.
Or not platted.
So it's not platted?
They need to plat it.
So they haven't done anything?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Because where's my thing?
So yeah, it's just a big square chunk of land right now.
Because, I mean, looking at it, there's a, I'm going to say it's a home in front of it.
That's what I see on
Is
the
that
map.
all one property currently?
On the north,
Yeah.
they are in the city of Pearland ETJ, and they're residential right now, currently residential.
If they're in the ETJ for Pearland, what is that for us? Are they in our city limits?
Sorry?
They're in the ETJ for Pearland.
Uh-huh.
The
guess,
property adjacent to it's in the ETJ, right? The one we're talking
No.
about's in our
In
ETJ.
the Manvel ETJ?
Right.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a weird,
Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah.
It's like living on the county line.
Okay. Any other questions about it? And again, this SUP was previously approved, it just expired, correct?
Correct.
And the recommendations you have now are essentially the same as before?
Approval with conditions.
Right, and those conditions were the same as what we had,
Yeah, kind of.
kind of close to, ones they haven't addressed? Okay, any other questions? Then looking for a motion.
I move that we approve with conditions.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously 6-0. Okay, agenda item E. Consideration and possible action to approve an extended stay permit for a recreational vehicle located at 6403 Debella Road. Who would love to enlighten us about this one?
Yes, this is an extended stay permit for a property located in 6403 Del Bello Road. It's located within the open single-family residential district. The request is an extended stay permit to allow the location of to use the RV as a single-family dwelling in excess to 6 months. The applicable regulation, Section 47-36 recreation vehicle parks, and Section 47-38, the criteria for extended stay permits. A little background on it. On August 21st of 2024, Code Enforcement Officer Catherine Gray inspected this property and issued a violation for using an RV as a permanent residence based on Section 47-36E of the Code of Ordinance. She observed a separate driveway and utility hookups for the RV. The property owner, Elizabeth Palacios, then contacted Officer Gray to explain to that her son, Brandon, lived in the RV. Ms. Palacio, a Manvel resident over 27 years, thought the ordinance had been updated to allow RVs as a permanent residence. Ms. Palacio has recently indicated that she has had multiple surgeries and currently on medical leave, unable to drive, and her husband, a 100% disabled veteran, is also preparing for surgery, which will further limit his mobility. Their son, Brandon, who also has medical conditions, helps with essential tasks such as yard maintenance, grocery shopping, and driving them to medical appointments. Due to his medical conditions, Brandon cannot live with them inside the small house, and the RV offers him an independence and stability that he needs. Given the circumstances, the Palacio family is requesting a 6-month extension until April 2025 to allow her son Brandon to continue residing in the RV while they work to secure an alternative house for him. The applicant has indicated that the request is based on the following 2 criteria. One, an individual who has selected camping unit as a housing alternative for extended periods due to extended circumstances such as illness, and individual who has selected camping unit as housing alternative for extended period due to circumstances such as sorry, I repeated myself. Under the open single-family residential zoning, the city's land use tables does not permit a RV as a single-family residence. The use of an RV is only permitted in an RV park. The RV park is permitted as a SUP in the light commercial, heavy commercial, and the MF, what is multifamily, sorry. And the RV cannot be used residence outside of the RV parks for only up to 6 months based on the provisions of Section 47-36 of the Code of Ordinance. However, Planning, Development, and Zoning Commission may authorize an extended stay permit in extended circumstances. The recommendation that staff recommends is approval of extended stay request as the applicant meets the permitted criteria.
Okay, thank you very much. And just one question from me, and then I'll defer here. Was this just a code violation that was observed, or was it a complaint, or do we know?
Just observed by Officer Catherine.
Okay, thank you. Kyle?
Well, I guess if we approve this, they're going to be back every 6 months?
Sounds like it. And that's where I want to say this is the first one. So if we give them 6 months and they come back in 6 months.
And we get to talk about it in 6 months?
We
have to stop it, yeah.
Yeah, because, most of them, we approve them because they're building in their home or they're things like that, and,
Well, 6 months should be enough time to find alternative living arrangements if that's what they're going for.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we can discuss that, if it comes back around.
Better not come back around.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? And motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Okay, final agenda item. Consideration and possible action to direct staff to provide applicants written statements of the conditions for any conditional approvals and the reasons for disapproval of any plans or plats that were not approved per Texas Local Government Code 212.0091. I will make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. And a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Amen.
Motion carries unanimously, yet again. Thank you, everybody, for coming back this evening. I know some of these agenda items have been stretched out a little bit, but we appreciate you participating. And they have been interesting. Thank you very much, and have a great evening. And of course, our For y'all, ours is a recommendation to city council, so there still will be at least one more meeting with city council to finalize whatever the decision